You're watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, we are awaiting an imminent ruling in Donald Trump's fraud trial for $370 million. Now, first of all, if Trump and his team lose here, who pays? Because, this is a fraud trial among a raft of different people among the Trump org, Trump himself, his associates, his kids. So does the sum get split among all the defendants, or is it Donald Trump himself who's going to shoulder the burden here?
Well, at the end of the day, it's going to be Trump and the Trump organization who are going to have to pay out. You're right. There are all sorts of people in the mix of this civil action that Letitia James brought against Trump and his adult sons and his officers of the Trump organization, like Alan Weisselberg, chief financial officer, Jeff McConney, the comptroller. So yes, there are a lot of defendants in the mix here. And to know precisely who will have to pay how much, that will probably have to await Judge Engoron's opinion, because he may end up apportioning it out in his findings. But at the end of the day, at the bottom of it all, this is Donald Trump's show and it's Donald Trump's fraud. And Donald Trump is going to be the one to take the huge hit in the pocketbook. It will come out of Trump money, if you kind of define that term expansively. But the details of exactly who pays how much, we'll have to see what Judge Engoron says about that.
Now, this was initially slated to be a $250 million lawsuit. How come it was raised to 370?
Yeah, great question, because Tish James originally put in her filing when she brought these charges $250 million, 250, and then by the end of it, she filed a brief in advance of closing arguments. She said, Judge, the number, when it all shakes out, is really more like 370 million. Here's what happened. During the course of the trial, they put on all sorts of forensic financial experts and forensic accounting experts who really drilled down into the weeds of exactly how much Trump did defraud the banks out of by overinflating his net worth and overinflating the values of his properties. And Trump put on some expert testimony as well. And so what I think Tish James and her team did is they stepped back after a lengthy trial at which there was lots and lots of financial evidence introduced. She ran the numbers, and it looks like it came out to about $370 million of fraud that Donald Trump and the others perpetrated against the banks. And I think that's why she ultimately settled on that new number.
Aside from the money damages, what else does Donald Trump stand to lose here?
Brian, this is where it's going to hit Donald Trump where it hurts. So the other thing that Tish James is seeking is a lifetime ban for Donald Trump being involved in the real estate industry in New York, and also a lifetime ban from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation. So, that will, in essence, put Donald Trump out of business if Judge Engoron orders those things. So he's also, so Tish James is also seeking to have, for example, Don Jr. and Eric banned from certain activities for a 5-year period. She's also seeking to have Weisselberg and McConney banned. But really, the big ticket one, the one that is going to be a gut punch to Donald Trump, is if he is banned for the rest of his life from doing any real estate business in New York or sitting on any boards as an officer or a director of any corporations in New York. That will essentially run Donald Trump out of the state of New York on a rail. He'll be done.
Now, Glenn, Donald Trump was asked about this case, and he made kind of a confused. I know this is going to be a shocker to you, but he made he gave a confused response to this question. Here's the clip.
Are you thinking of potentially trying to use campaign money to pay some of those penalties that you might incur?
What penalties?
In the New York fraud case, the defamation case.
I didn't do anything wrong. I mean, that's been proven as far as I'm concerned. And actually, we won in the Court of Appeals. You probably saw that. That case has been largely won in the Court of Appeals. That was a political case coordinated with the White House by the Attorney General, I assume is what you're talking about. And we won that case largely in the Court of Appeals.
All right, I guess the question here is, what the hell is he talking about?
Next thing you know, we're going to hear that there's gambling in Atlantic City. Are you kidding me? He's already won the case on appeal.
Yeah.
This is what, listen, if I have to try to unravel Donald Trump's thought process, using that term liberally, here's what he's probably talking about. At one point, Judge Engoron ordered, as part of Donald Trump losing on the merits in what we call summary judgment, based on the papers that were filed, the documents, the obvious fraud in Donald Trump's, for example, statements of financial condition. All of those things were litigated, what we call on the papers, before they even started calling witnesses. And Judge Engoron said, the fraud is so obvious and there is no defense against it. There is no refuting it, that I'm entering a judgment against Donald Trump. He already lost on the merits. As part of that initial ruling, Judge Engoron said, and I am ordering the cancellation of Donald Trump's New York business certificates. That's what they call them. Basically, his license to do business in New York. That was appealed. And my understanding of the current status or posture of that appeal is the appeals court just put it on hold. They issued a stay, and they're going to take it up when the case is over, so they can take up the entirety of the case at one time. Donald Trump won nothing on appeal. So this, shocking as it may be, is just Donald Trump lying to anybody who is gullible or not enough or not bright enough to actually discern between fact and fiction.
Yeah, a novel strategy by Donald Trump. He's going for lying now. We'll see how that works out. Glenn, what happens if Trump isn't liquid between this judgment here that he's about to be hit with, and also the existing judgments from the E. Jean Carroll cases, for example, of $5 million and $83 million?
Yeah, that's a big ticket question, because first he was ordered to pay $5 million, and really importantly, Brian, in the E. Jean Carroll case, he didn't even post a bond. He may not have been able to find anybody willing to post a bond for him or vouch for him. He had to take $5 million, actually $5.55 million, and give it to the court to hold for safekeeping in escrow. That's money that he can't invest. That's money he can't earn interest off of. That has really hurt Donald Trump, I suspect. Now, on top of it, he's got an $83 million judgment he has to contend with. We don't know what he's going to do with that. But, those two judgments, as important as they are, may pale in comparison to what's about to hit him from Judge Engoron. It could be a $370 million judgment. I don't know that he has the liquid assets to cover all that. I suspect he doesn't, but nobody really knows the state of his financial circumstances, because he's never really been willing to tell the truth about any of it. But if he doesn't have enough assets to actually either put up a bond or deposit all that money with the court for safekeeping while he appeals, well, then guess what? He doesn't get to appeal. Or more precisely, he can appeal, but he's got to pay the amount that has been ordered in damages. And you have to wonder if he has enough liquid assets to do that. Now, Brian, I'm not saying he is ready to go the way of his former lawyer, who he also stiffed for legal fees, Rudy Giuliani, because after Rudy was found liable for defaming the Georgia state election workers, Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, the DC jury ordered Rudy to pay $148 million. What's the next thing Rudy did? He filed for bankruptcy as a way to try to stave off paying that and a whole host of other debts he owes. I'm not saying Donald Trump is moving in the direction of bankruptcy, but I'm not saying he's not moving in the direction of bankruptcy either.
Yeah. Let's finish off with this, and this is a question that I'm sure we both get quite often, but it's worth bringing up. Can this impact Donald Trump's ability to run for office?
Not legally speaking. You can be found by a jury of your peers to have defamed someone. You can be found by a judge to have engaged in long-term, rampant business fraud, basically defrauding banks and at its core, defrauding the people of New York out of millions and millions of dollars. None of that is a legal impediment to running for office. Of course, the question, I think for you, Brian, being the political expert, is if it's not a legal impediment, do you view it as, if not a political impediment, something that might actually penetrate, might actually hurt him with his base?
I think not any more than anything else has. I mean, honestly, it kind of feeds into the whole Trump strategy of presenting himself as a victim. And so he's made it in such a way that anytime he's held accountable for his own actions, he has twisted that into making it seem like he's under attack by the deep state or the Democrats or something like that. And so because we know he's going to keep being held accountable for all of the crimes that he's committed, for all of the actions he's committed, he's kind of figured out a way to curry sympathy just for being held to account for what he's done. And so no, I don't think this is going to have any political impact on him, but it is going to have an impact on his ability to use that money that he would otherwise use for political activities. You look at how the RNC is doing, how Donald Trump's campaign is doing. They're both strapped for cash because all of this money that should be going toward campaigning is instead being diverted to Donald Trump's legal fees. So as far as this here is concerned, no, I don't think this is going to have any major impact on him because all the while he's presented himself as some martyr here.
And how long before we see a Trump fundraising email saying, listen, friends, now it's time to dig deep into your pockets because I owe E. Jean Carroll $88 million in total, and I am being ordered by Judge Engoron to pay $370 million. So now I need you more than ever. It's time to give.
I would be shocked if we haven't seen 14 of them come out today. So, and I'm sure there will be plenty more where that came from. So with that said, we'll obviously stay on top of this trial right here, this fraud trial. Again, this ruling is imminent. We expect it any moment now. And as soon as we do have that final judgment from Judge Engoron, we'll come back here and talk about the implications of what just happened. So with that said, if you want to follow along, make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on this screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.